Imagine you're an ancient Mesopotamian living around 2000 BCE. You have just finished a long week of labor in the fields, and all you want to do is take the next day off to rest up. Surely your boss would understand that you need some time to recover before you get back to work, right? Not so much, because in ancient Mesopotamia, working on the weekend was punishable by death. And it wasn't the only culture to hold this view. In today's video, we're going to find out why exactly ancient cultures like the Mesopotamians, Egyptians, and even Israelites thought that weekend work was such a big deal. But it's important to remember that these ancient cultures were polytheistic, meaning that they believed in and worshipped multiple gods. And these gods were not friendly deities that just do good things for fun. No, these gods were capricious and often vengeful. And if you angered them, they could bring disease, famine, or war upon the entire human race. So when they demanded that people submit themselves fully to their will, it was a matter of life and death. To answer why ancient cultures executed people for working on the weekend, we have to first travel back in time to the origin of the weekend itself. They had real reasons for wanting their people to follow their rules. After all, these rules often reflected their unique beliefs and values. Well, the Babylonians didn't just pick Saturday out of nowhere. They chose it based on astronomical events that occurred on that day. Every year during the vernal equinox, the sun would rise in the east. They made it a point to reserve Saturday for worshiping Yahweh, and the rest of the week for working in the fields. And set in the west, which Babylonian astronomers took to mean that their god, Molech, was riding his chariot across the sky. This made Saturday especially holy, since it was on this day that the sun seemed to pay homage to their god. They created the weekend in order to honor their gods, one of which happened to be a deity named Moloch. However, the Egyptians and Israelites had their own beliefs that they wanted to include. As such, they combined Osiris's resurrection with the Babylonian story of Molech's chariot ride and made Sunday a celebration of death and rebirth. The Egyptians also incorporated other gods into the mix, such as Ra, the sun god, and Horus, the sky god. So over time, the weekend took on a new meaning in each culture. In order to appease him, they designated Saturday as a holy day of rest. Not quite. See, there was another problem with the way that ancient cultures observed the weekend. While we normally think of the weekend as a time for partying and having fun, the ancient Mesopotamians saw it as a time for solemn prayer and reflection. In other words, they viewed the weekend as a time for religious activities. So not only could you not do any normal activities on the weekend, you also couldn't do anything fun. The problem was that their definition of rest was a little different than ours. To them, rest meant no work whatsoever. This included things like farming, obviously, but also things like baking, cooking, and even cleaning. Imagine being told that you can't clean your house on the weekend. That'd be crazy. But these ancient cultures took it even further. They believed that even walking outside on the weekend was disrespectful to the gods. You see, the weekend was invented by the ancient Babylonians, who were part of the larger Mesopotamian culture. It makes sense that they would ban more active forms of labor like farming, since that was how most people made money.
Oh.
But why would they ban passive activities like eating or walking outside? Well, it's because they didn't just want a day of rest, they wanted a day of total submission to their gods. For them, not working on the weekend wasn't just about taking a break from their normal lives. It was also about actively showing their devotion to the divine. Now, if you didn't work on the weekend, you might think that you'd just be able to relax and enjoy your Saturday. This may seem a bit extreme, especially considering that pretty much every culture in the world now observes weekends with parties and vacations. But why did they choose Saturday specifically? Why not say Sunday? Because the Babylonians were such sticklers for rules. They eventually spread their concept of the weekend to their neighboring cultures, like the Egyptians and Israelites. For example, the Egyptians also had a death god named Osiris, who they believed had died and risen from the dead. As for the Israelites, they adopted a version of the weekend that emphasized the importance of family. So while it might seem crazy to us now, the ancient cultures weren't just making stuff up when they came up with the weekend. Now check out How Did Ancient Rome Change the World? Or watch this video instead.